Well, this is just the most extraordinary scene. We've been hearing about this boat for the last 4 or 5 days through very, very occasional phone calls they've got out, telling of their desperate plight. Nobody knew where they were. We've been searching for it, trying to work it out. Now we've found it. It's packed full of, well, we can see at least 150 people on board. They say they are from Myanmar, from Burma, they're Rohingya Muslims, and that they're absolutely desperately hungry and thirsty. They've been calling out to us for help. We believe help is on the way. The Thai Navy's come to look at them, but we're not sure how quickly they're going to get it. We've been throwing them everything we have, all the bottles of water we have on board. But you can see there are women and children on board, and they've made a very long journey. We don't know quite how long they've been at sea, but it could be many, many weeks. And they've been abandoned by their crew. They've been towed, we believe, at one point across to Malaysia, then back to here. But they seem unable to move under their own power, and they've clearly got very little in the way of food and water on board. So their state is absolutely desperate, but just try to imagine the state of other boats that might be out there. This one's now been found and there's some hope of help. What we don't know is what will happen to them now. The countries in this region have been operating a policy of pushing them back, both Malaysia, Thailand and Indonesia. And I think there'll be something of a tug of war about who is going to take responsibility for these people. But right now what's absolutely clear is they need help, they need it now. They need to get to land. They'll need medical treatment, and they certainly need plenty of food and water.
Kerajaan Malaysia dinasihatkan untuk mendaftarkan kehadiran pelarian Rohingya ke dalam negara sebelum memberi penempatan sementara kepada etnik itu di 2 kem program latihan khidmat negara atau PLKN. Ini kerana menurut Naib Presiden Angkatan Belia Islam Malaysia atau ABIM, Muhammad Raimi Abdul Rahman, tidak semua pelarian yang berada di atas kapal tersebut adalah pelarian etnik Rohingya.
Yalah, kita rasa utamanya memang seperti kenyataan lah, kita sebut baik hasrat untuk menempatkan mereka sementara waktu di Malaysia, dan itu sebenarnya yang kita dah lakukan sebelum ni. Semuanya yang pastinya kita nak supaya kita mendaftarkan mereka mengikut undang-undang, sebab kita pun maklum bahawa yang ada datang tu sebagainya Bangladesh dan sebagainya Rohingya.
Ujarnya beliau tidak mahu kelonggaran yang diberikan pihak kerajaan itu disalahgunakan oleh pendatang asing yang cuba menyeludup masuk ke dalam negara ini.
Kita tak mahu jugalah yang masuk ni bukan pelarian dan nak menyeludup masuk dan nyamar sebagai orang Rohingya.
Menteri Pertahanan Datuk Seri Hishamuddin Hussein dalam responnya menjawab soalan daripada pengguna Twitter berkata 2 kem program khidmat latihan negara dikenal pasti sebagai penempatan sementara pelarian etnik Rohingya. Menurut Raimi, selain menempatkan pelarian tersebut di 2 kem PLKN yang dicadangkan, kerajaan juga mempunyai alternatif lain dengan membenarkan mereka menetap di beberapa komuniti Rohingya sedia ada dengan pantauan.
Cadangan untuk penempatan sementara itu saya fikir ada dua kaedah lah. Pertamanya yang sebelum ni berlaku, mereka dah ada komuniti dah di sini sebenarnya. Jadi barangkali kita boleh biarkan mereka tinggal bersama komuniti mereka dan kita pantau lah. Itu lebih mudah sebenarnya berbanding dengan mungkin barangkali kita letakkan mereka di kem-kem PLKN. Sebab itu memerlukan pemantauan penuh.
Mengulas lanjut apakah kemasukan lebih ramai pelarian Rohingya ke dalam negara akan mengganggu gugat keharmonian sedia ada rakyat Malaysia, ini jawab Raimi.
Ya, kita sedia maklum tu. Cuma sekarang ni memang kita kena seimbangkan lah di antara langkah kemanusiaan yang sementara, yang jelas, dan juga kebimbangan kita terhadap xenofobia ni lah, maknanya terhadap kehadiran orang asing. Dan kita pun jelas hasratnya kebaik dari kerajaan, pembangkang dan masyarakat, civil society, semuanya mendesak kerajaan supaya menerima mereka. Jadi bila kita dah mendesak untuk menerima, sekarang kita kena bersedia untuk memberikan mereka bantuan lah.
Malah Raimi berkata salah satu bentuk bantuan yang perlu diberikan adalah dengan memberikan mereka hidup berdikari di negara ini sehingga Myanmar bersedia menerima mereka semula.
Jadi bantuan tu ada berbagai cara dan salah satu caranya ialah untuk mereka berdikari dengan komuniti mereka sehingga Myanmar menerima mereka balik. Apa optionnya? Kita terpaksa menerima mereka di sini.
Tambah Raimi lagi, apa yang berlaku ini bukan perkara baru kerana negara telah menerima lebih 40,000 orang pelarian Rohingya sebelum ini. Terdahulu terdapat laporan bahawa Malaysia dan Indonesia akan memberi perlindungan sementara kepada pelarian ini dan Menteri Luar Datuk Seri Anifah Aman berkata bantuan akan diberi berdasarkan perkara yang telah dipersetujui oleh komuniti antarabangsa bahawa mereka akan dibenarkan tinggal atau mereka dihantar pulang dalam masa 1 tahun.
Now, a story of desperation and migration as refugees take to the sea in Asia but struggle to find safe harbor. Hari Srinivasan reports on this burgeoning humanitarian crisis in the region, one no country is in a rush to solve.
How long have you been on the boat?
The people on this rickety fishing boat say they've been at sea for 3 months, fleeing poverty in Bangladesh and persecution in Myanmar, once called Burma. The captain and crew abandoned them 6 days ago. They told journalists from the New York Times who filmed this video. In recent days, they were turned away from Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia. They're part of an estimated 6,000 people on boats in the waters around the three nations. 1,600 other migrants were rescued by the Malaysian and Indonesian navies earlier this week. Since November, an estimated 20,000 to 25,000 people have left Myanmar and Bangladesh. Many are from the Rohingya, a Muslim minority which has been persecuted by the Myanmar government. For more on the exodus from Myanmar and Bangladesh, we turn now to Sernata Reynolds, Senior Advisor on Human Rights at Refugees International, a nonprofit organization that advocates on behalf of refugees. So just to bring our audience up to speed, who are these people? Why are they getting into boats and running from where they live today?
So the Rohingya are an ethnic minority in Myanmar. There are about 1.3 million of them in the country, although over the last 2.5 years, 10% of them have fled on boats. They have lived in the country for generations, some for hundreds of years, but the government has decided to persecute them and has, over the last 3 years, beaten them with impunity, put them into camps, told them that they have to call themselves Bengali or they'll be detained, and otherwise basically left all humanitarian access out so they can't even get food or medical care or even go to school.
And this is ironic because Myanmar has been kind of slowly taking steps towards opening economically, opening politically, but this particular segment of the population doesn't seem like this is a priority at all.
And in fact, it's gotten worse, ironically, as the country has become more open to the international community. The fate of the Rohingya has declined.
So tell us a bit about the journey. What is it like when they get on these boats?
Well, I've actually talked to Rohingya about this passage. I met people both who had been on the boats and been sent back and people who were going to take the journey when I was there last fall. And what they told me was that oftentimes they think they're going to, they've gotten on a boat and they know they're probably going to have to work when they land wherever they're going to land. They hope for Malaysia at this point. They know that they will owe money for the passage. But they hope that they won't become the prey of traffickers. They know that's a risk. They also know that being detained upon arrival is a risk, but they're so desperate to leave that they take the risk anyway. The journey itself is brutal. They don't know how long they'll be on the water. Even when they're being fed, it's not very much. And water, of course, is always an issue.
So just a couple of days ago, we had, I think, a Navy vessel from one of these countries actually restock them with supplies and then leave them at sea. Why aren't the countries taking them in? What's their justification or rationale for the way that their immigration policy is?
So there's no real good rationale for leaving people to die at sea. The reason that countries are reacting in this way is because the Rohingya have been fleeing Myanmar for decades. Bangladesh is the closest country. You can basically walk there from Rakhine State, where they're from, but Bangladesh already has between 250,000 and 500,000 Rohingya there. And so it's closed its border. It said no more. Thailand was the place people went to next. It's the closest country after that. There's already 100,000 Rohingya there, and Thailand, again, has closed its doors. It's putting people in detention. And as we saw over the last week or two, people end up in these terrible trafficking camps in the jungle, and they're left to die even there. There's been mass graves found there as well in the last few weeks. Malaysia and Indonesia basically say this isn't our problem. This is Myanmar's problem, and they're right. But unfortunately, in the meantime, while this persecution continues, they have to protect these people.
And what happens to the people who do make it somehow on land, who, whether illegally or not, get through? And what's their life like in these countries?
It's still, unfortunately, generally miserable. So most of them will probably be detained when they arrive, if they're picked up. Obviously, if they get through, they won't be. But they're at the bottom of society. They have no documentation whatsoever. They are desperate to make any income. And so, of course, they're going to take the hardest jobs. They're going to be exploited. I talked to one man who told me that he had left so that he could make some money so that his family who are in the camps in Myanmar have food and medicine, because they can't get food and medicine. And he said that basically he worked everywhere and anywhere he could, and it could have been the dirtiest, most dangerous work. It didn't matter. It was work.
All right, Sernata Reynolds from Refugees International. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
We heard about the stranded boats. Some people said the crew throw people into the sea if they die. They do it if children die. When I heard about it, I thought that my 2 grandchildren may die if they have been treated like this. They cannot even stand if they don't have a snack every 5 minutes. It has been more than 2 months. If they don't eat anything, they will die.
If I can get my son back, I want him now. A woman who was on a boat in Thai waters said she had seen my son on another boat 2 months ago. She said she even passed him some food.